Okay, heads removed. Not too bad a job to get the heads off. Cam chains out just so they don't snag up, so we can just have a look at the bores. One of them is always going to attempt to snag up. I just want to see the bores. So we're right down at the bottom here. So I'm going to get the torch and we'll have a look. Yeah, I think we'll take you off and have a look. Let's just take the camera off here so we can have a look. Right, here we go. So, yeah, still see honing marks in the bores. They look good. Front, where the bit of water came out of the front head, you think you've drained it, like I've said before on the videos, you think you've got everything out. And no, you haven't. There's always a bit. So anyway, so we'll just move around the tripod. Bloody rat wasp flying in there. So yeah, down in there we can see the crank through the cases. So yeah, that's it. That's next stage. So I think what we'll do, we'll get tidied up, because there's always a bit of mopping up to do when you start pulling something apart. And we'll get clutch off, strip the clutch down, take clutch off, primary drive off as I said before, and then we'll start looking at taking the sump off. Great stuff. Okay, so took primary drive off, took clutch off, clutch assembly, and it leaves us now with our detent there for the gear selector shaft, and another detent actually under there. So so yeah, there's the input shaft, and let's have a look a little bit again. Let's have a just spin around a minute. A little bit of water in there. The drains on there, I'm going to have to undo the drains on there. Okay, so I think its next one is take off the generator rotor, and essentially anything that stops the case has been split, so we can turn it upside down shortly. Yeah, see this bearing retainer here actually goes across the join, across the crankcase's separation line, so obviously that plate there will have to come undone. I mean, in essence, I think, well, that's behind that, so that's going to have to come out off that spring. The selector arm, the gear change selector arm there, you can actually see that trying to work there, that way, and oh, damn sight harder to press that way, or it appears to be, unless it's just the angle you've got on it. But anyway, so that's the oil pump's drive that came off the little chain back of the clutch to drive the oil pump here. So yeah, okay, right, proceed to take the Jenny off and we'll have another look. Moving on. Okay, I've just removed the rotor and the stator. Yeah, just a heads up, I always thought that the thread for the puller was the same as the rear wheel spindle, but anyway, it must be something else I'm thinking of on that, because it certainly wasn't. I do have another rear wheel spindle. So anyway, what I did, I did some BMW flat twin swinging arm bearings a while ago, and I've still got the old sort of bolts out So all I did is look through all my old nuts and bolts, which is why we never throw everything away. That fit, just 2 seconds, that fit the rotor. Just so yeah, that fit the rotor. Found a big nut, welded it on with a MIG and buzzed it off. Job done. Don't hit it, don't start trying to break it off this taper, hitting it with hammers or yeah, I did have a little puller there, but the thread, it kind of tried, but the threads, it's a very fine thread on that, so that wasn't it. Anyway, yeah, don't try hitting it, you'll break the magnets off on the inside. Try hitting it, you need the you know, a correct puller. So it just, luckily I'd still got the bolts for that, and I big nuts welded it on, like I say, and then buzzed it through, and it pushes against the end of the crank and off she came. No damage. That's what it's about. Okay, just undone all the water pump and everything, the water pipes to get the water pump off, but we did have a comment in the comment section about will I show the banjo bolt. That was the banjo bolt. That's a 3mm drill bit in there. Okay, that's a 3mm drill bit in the banjo bolt that supplies the oil line from this point here. Now, if you take yours out and have a look, the hole's a lot smaller than that, and it just, for number one, that's unacceptable to feed around on that part, to feed both banks of cams, 4 cams and all the carriers and the lobes, the followers, everything, all that sort of just fed by there. So that got drilled out with a 3mm. You couldn't really move it much more than that anyway. Plus, at the end of the day, you know, fluid dynamics is it'll only ever flow. There's a formula in this, isn't there, through pressure to hole size, but it'll only ever flow as big as the smallest hole. So I mean, that's got to be about the size of the hole up the whole of the rest of the pipe anyway. So I mean, you could put, you know, if it allowed it, you could put a 10mm hole in there, and if the pipe itself is only sort of a 3mm internal hole diameter, then that's all it's going to flow. So yeah, that's something I did a long time ago. Reading about it, it's a mod. You can kind of upgrade it a little bit and just give it that little bit more, but in my opinion, this is just my opinion, in my opinion, it's still not enough. Yeah, my cams, my head, all that sort of stuff still looks, you know, okay and all that lot, but you know, with motors I pulled apart before, I mean, this has been running, you know, two days ago. Motors I pulled apart before that have just been running, there's so much oil up around the top end still, you know, like waiting to kind of drain down, and there's just very, very little oil up in the top end, you know, it just makes you. So I'm going to explore with this engine, this oil mod that the works, the racers used, and if it means, you can actually see the oil way there to this bearing, this main bearing here, where it's put a little aluminium bung plug in it, where they've drilled down like that into the oil gallery, then put a bung in it, and obviously when the case is apart, they've drilled vertically into, which is that bit, up into the bearing, and then just plug the hole off so it comes up at the 45 degree, it looks like, and then up and into that bearing. But anyway, I'm going to explore the mod that you can either take it off the back of the filter, or we go into the oil gallery that feeds the crank and tee off and come up with 2 separate pot lines, their own individual lines up to the cams. I'm going to explore that. I'm not going to say I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to look at doing it. If it can be done, I'm going to have a go at doing it. So I'm going to do a bit of research and there's stuff around on it, and if it's, well, I mean, I don't need an instruction manual, don't get me wrong here, but I've got a good idea how I'm going to do it. If it can be done, I've got a good idea how I'm going to do it, and then that would leave this redundant. So all we would do in there is the same pitch bolt, just put a bolt in and block it off. So not too long, obviously, but as long as, you know, we don't want to block off a supply that's actually going somewhere else as well as that. So, you know, just a short bolt that'll block that off. So anyway, we'll pick it up in a bit. Everything's off round, like I say, we've got all that off, generator off, rotor off, etc. So let's just have another look. I think we looked at that on the last video, didn't we? So what I've got to get out now is to get the selector shaft out. I need to just take the detents off and remove this plate here that's obviously bridging the two halves, and then we can kind of think about turning it upside down and undoing all the and the ones on the top obviously, but undoing all the crankcase bolts. We'll take some off first and we'll have a look in there. Okay, right, we'll catch it up in a bit.